So how are you men tonight?
Great.
Good.
How about yourself?
Excellent, man. Excellent.
That's good.
Doing well, thanks, Blake.
Well, good.
Never been better.
That's great. Ryan, how you feeling?
Never been better.
Never been better. There's that optimism
That's because he's on painkillers.
on painkillers.
I haven't taken one for a while. I'm actually thinking kind of clear right now.
Well, good to hear. But you are feeling much better?
What's that?
You are feeling much better?
I am, yeah.
Good. I've been out of town last few days, so I kind of haven't checked in to see how you've been doing. I feel bad.
Well, you've been out enjoying life, hiking Tahoe.
Well,
It
Yeah.
might be nice to hike.
well, you get your heel back and everything, it will go, man.
Sounds good.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, I feel like we did about 15 miles each day, and I'll tell you what, I'm feeling kind of sore tonight. My calves are finally saying, you know what? I think you did a little too much.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to have surgery on your heel then, Ryan?
It'll be on Thursday.
Thursday.
Yep.
Then it's back to the painkillers, huh?
We'll see. I'll
Well,
probably take them a little bit.
yeah, it's probably better to avoid them if you can.
Yeah.
Charlotte, how are you doing?
Well, how was your trip to Lake Tahoe?
It was good, but how are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Just plunking along.
Blake, those antlers look
That's
awful
like
good again.
got going
I
on.
know. I need to do something different. Sorry.
That looked really good. There you go. Here, let's all mimic Blake.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I am a Mormon.
Yeah, you have those horns.
You have the
going on.
antlers.
Well, we call them horns.
I'll try to move next time.
No, this is too much fun.
All right. John, is everyone on or able to get on?
Yes, we've got several attendees as well as the council.
Fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We have a quorum here. We'll excuse Councilwoman Stoker. She'll be joining us a little bit later. But we welcome staff and public who are with us tonight. And thanks, Council, for being in attendance this evening. Our thought and Pledge of Allegiance or invocation will be given by Council Member Severing. So, Council Member.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful today to be able to assemble. We're grateful for the rights that allow us to be able to do so. We pray that as we meet, that deliberations would be appropriate and that decisions rendered would be for the best benefit of all the citizens whom we appreciate and we pray for this night. May there are certainly those who are struggling. We pray for thy attendants to be with them. They might be strengthened and healed. And we particularly pray this night for Charlotte and also for Ryan and their recovery from the surgeries that they've had, and bless their families and their support. We give thanks for our abundance, Heavenly Father, and recognize the beautiful place that we live in and are thankful for these wonderful bounties that we have. And we pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, Councilman, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
You bet. If everybody would repeat after me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. We appreciate that. Tonight, I'd like to start our meeting, and I hope Graydon and Mary Jo have joined us. Are they with us this evening? John?
Yes, they are. I'm going to promote them to a panelist so they can be seen and heard.
Perfect. We'll wait for you to do that.
So it has them down as a panelist. They are still muted and their cameras off.
Okay, maybe we can get them to start video and unmute.
Okay.
Yep, there they are.
Have we got camera? There they are. Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We just want to take a minute in today's world where there's a lot of things going on and we hear not as many positive, and particularly with our youth and some of the difficulties they face, we wanted to take a minute tonight and honor Drayden. Just maybe give a little background for those who have joined us. Then maybe we could get some comments from you, Mary Joy. On a recent Saturday, it's my understanding that your family had a little trip on the Weber River, and you were using tubes to float the river, which many of us have done in our lifetime. However, things kind of went a little squampus, so to speak, when Mary Jo, you fell off of your tube and you couldn't stop and get out where the rest of the group had exited the river. And fortunately, Drayden, your 14-year-old son, noticed that you were having a little difficulty and you'd fallen off your tube. And somehow he was able to grab your tube and help you get out of the river after some, I guess, little crying and screaming along the way, which I think most of us would do. And Drayden, who is basically 14, held onto your tube for a few hundred feet as you were going down the river. And he was able to endure going over the rocks and the rapids, and finally able to miraculously grab hold of a big rock in the raging waters and help you get to safety. So we understand, Mary Jo, that you were a little bruised and battered, but very grateful for the bravery of your son. And we just wanted to honor him tonight with a certificate of bravery, which is on the screen now, and thank him for being a good North Ogden citizen and doing the right thing. So Mary Jo, don't know if you or Drayden have anything you'd like to say this evening, but we are grateful, Drayden, for your bravery and honor you this evening as your city government. So Mary Jo, did you or Drayden want to add anything?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy experience, but and I'm actually a really good swimmer. I have my Red Cross badges all finished, and I was a synchronized swimmer all growing up, but it didn't matter in that situation. There was no way I could stop. There's no way I could get back in the tube, and Drayden's comment was that he didn't want me to be out there alone, so he came after me, and he held on for the whole time. But it's a pretty neat experience. My grandparents were all passed away before I was born on my mom's side, and my mom said that she could picture her grandpa or her father, which is my grandpa, holding on to Drayden's shoulders and helping him to know what to do, along with my mom's favorite uncle Jojo, which I was named after. And she said after I told her, she just could feel that they were holding on to his shoulders to help him, because there's no way that he probably could have done what he did without help.
Well, we understand that Drayden's not only a hero in your eyes and many others, but he's also an honor student. And
yes, he's in the honor society.
That's awesome, Drayden. And we also understand you're an amazing friend to everyone and everybody. And according to your mom, of course, we all look at it this way. She indicates you've never said a bad word and that you're a responsible individual. And so you'll notice with our certificate of bravery, that's signed by our chief of police, Dirk Quinney, and by myself as mayor of North Ogden. Did you have anything you wanted to say tonight, Drayden?
Very thankful that you guys got out to us.
I think we may have lost them with a bad connection, but
Can you hear us?
just barely. Looks like we have a bad connection maybe.
Okay, try that.
All right, Drayden.
Very thankful that for you guys to invite us out Zoom call.
Okay, well, we'll get you this certificate of bravery. We'll drop this by your home. And we wish you the best of luck. Looks like we might be losing you on the connection, but thank you so much for joining us this evening. And good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move into our consent agenda. And I've asked Annette to make a brief modification to the minutes indicating that our meeting was held virtually, but also we had a couple of field trips, and those are outlined in the meetings, but I just asked her to make that adjustment at the beginning of the meeting. So with that amendment, I would be looking for a motion from the council to approve the June 9th, 2020, July 7th, 2020, and July 14th, 2020 city council meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we accept and approve the minutes for city council meetings on June 9th, July 7th, and July 14th, 2020, as outlined in the packet.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Do we have a second?
I second that.
A second by Councilman Severing. Do we have any discussion on the minutes? Being none, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? We'll now move into our active agenda and we'll seek public comments. Once again, John Call will be monitoring those for comments, or you can communicate to us via chat. And I would just remind you to please state your full name, your address, and we will limit public comments to 5 minutes. So with that, John, if you would monitor for any comments from the public.
Okay, we don't have anybody yet.
Okay, once again, we'll wait just a few seconds to see if anybody wants to make a comment. Any yet, John?
Nope, nothing yet.
All right, there being no comments from the public this evening, we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is a discussion or action to consider an ordinance regulating sound in North Ogden. Our presenter will be our city manager and attorney, John Call. John?
Thank you, Mayor. So council, this is the sound ordinance we discussed last week, or 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, that is intended to essentially treat the entire city the same, with a distinction being made between sound that's heard on commercial properties and sound that's heard on residential properties. And some of those changes are shown here in red and green. They're in different colors because some were made prior to council meeting, which are the ones in green, and then the ones in red are the ones that were made during council meeting last time. With the addition of this paragraph here, which is H, we had a concern raised by our Public Works Department that occasionally on Washington Boulevard, the crews are required to work at night because UDOT won't let a certain number of lanes be closed at any one time. And so this column H takes that into account. It says it says road and utility work on UDOT highways shall be permitted during hours as authorized by UDOT to manage traffic congestion and safety concerns. And so essentially what that means is that if UDOT is the one designating when they are required to do the work, that they would not be in violation of the city's sound ordinance. And we do have 2 projects coming up that there will be some portion of nighttime work on Washington. One is a water line project that the city is doing that is running a new water line from about where the subway is up to the top of Bicentennial Park, so about 2 blocks. And then the other one is the widening next year for the same reason. There'll be some utility work done at night when there'll be some open trenches across the intersection so that during the daytime hours, people are still able to travel through the intersection and not be blocked entirely. So that is part of the reason that this language was inserted. Any questions about that new language?
Council?
Okay. And then there were a couple comments from last meeting that I didn't feel like we fully resolved on. One was in relation to agricultural harvesting. I just wanted to make sure the council was okay with this language that says it's permitted provided no other time is available for the required harvest conditions. I think the comment last time was that there was a comment that maybe it should just be permitted. And I just wanted to get some further clarification on that to make sure we're capturing this the way the council wants.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of wide open when it says no other time is available. There's always other times available, right? But I think Councilman Barker said that there's really a prime time to do that harvesting. Maybe he could expand on that.
My thought was, I know there's a lot of farmers that like to, with their alfalfa hay, they do the baling and the raking in the evening because then they get some dew on it and it kind of holds it all together. It can always be done in the daytime, but there's a lot of farmers that work from, well, almost 24 hours a day in the summertime. They just have that much work to do. My only concern was who's going to be the one that decides if there's a better time to harvest? Who of our city staff is going to be the expert on determining or telling the farmers that there's a better time than what the farmers are planning? I just think it opens it up. If whether we permit it or not, I don't want to be the one that tells the farmer you can't do it now, do it tomorrow.
So we could amend this language to just say agricultural harvesting is permitted. Is there any caveats you'd want to make to that, or some? I don't know. I mean, that's the question.
Yeah. I don't know what else you'd say. I know farmers don't typically go out there with the intention of creating noise at night to keep everyone awake.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Swanson.
I'm with Ryan. I think just saying that it's permitted. We don't have any large commercial farms, in the grand scale like some places do. And our farmers are probably some of our most conscientious citizens that we have. So I'd say we just let it be permitted.
Okay, any other comments?
Mayor,
Mayor,
Councilman Severing.
I was just going to say, John, have we had any complaints from anybody in the city regarding the harvesting of the hay and the time frame?
I'm not aware of any. Chief Quinney is listening in, and so we could see if he's aware of any complaints. So you should be able to talk, Chief, but we're not hearing you at this point.
Is he off mute, John?
He is on my end. I think he might need to unmute himself as well on his end. Let me try. I'm going to try promoting him to a panelist and see if that helps resolve some of the issues.
Sounds like we may have difficulties.
Yeah. So, but anyways, at least I'm not aware of any complaints related to agricultural activities in the city.
Yeah, I think that makes sense unless someone has an objection. Was that you, Council Member Ekstrom, that wanted to speak, or is that Council Member Stoker with us now?
I did want to say something just because my house actually borders one of those alfalfa fields, and I just don't see it's a problem at all. I mean, sometimes I hear it, it's like, oh, what's going on? And, my kids will go out and look outside. It's like, oh, they're harvesting the hay, and it's kind of exciting. So yeah, no, it's really not a problem. I would say just whenever the farmers need to, let them do it when it's most optimal for them. It's their livelihood. They need to be able to do it when it needs to be done.
Okay. Doesn't look like there's any objection, so let's move forward with that amendment then.
Okay, and then the next comment was about construction noise. And we did eliminate the Sunday provision in this version. And then there was a comment about the violation being a Class B misdemeanor. A couple weeks ago, we did increase the fine for the construction noise and make it a Class B misdemeanor because of part of the issue, some of the issues we've been having. But that doesn't mean that in light of changing the provision related to days of the week, that there isn't a reason to discuss it again. So the council, I think, just needs to decide what type of infraction or penalty they'd like to have it be.
Is there a council member that objects to the Class B misdemeanor?
Mayor,
Councilman Swanson.
the question that I have is there a difference between the neighbor who's, putting on a small addition or doing something in their yard versus a large scale construction development? Do we treat them differently? Do we treat them the same? I had suggested that we move this back down to an infraction because I was thinking of the individual homeowner that's working on their home, maybe re-roofing, Ryan, doing their house, and they're up extra early, not knowing what the time limit is, and I'd hate to see them potentially receiving a Class B misdemeanor for something like that. But at the same time, I can understand with some of our large developers that if it became a problem, we would want some stronger teeth. So those are my thoughts.
I think the most recent comment I had from a citizen about construction noise was the construction of a single home. It was like the remaining lot in a subdivision. So I don't know, Councilman, how we determine what's, you know, and I would hope that in that situation, that our police, and I believe this is the attitude they take, would give a warning first that let the resident know there's a violation. But I think the reason we went to a Class B is we were finding that contractors were just basically ignoring the sound ordinance because of the minimal penalties, but either way is fine to.
No, that makes complete sense. That's, I'm fine with it then.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Thanks, Councilman Swanson, for your comments. John, I had a question. How did we arrive at the special permit at 1,000 people?
That is the county requirement for a special event permit is 1,000 people for 2 hours or more. And Tiffany's on if you'd like more comments related to her experience with that.
I think that's fine if it's a county regulation that we have to comply with. I guess we could have it smaller if we so desired, but not. Does anybody see any reason not to leave it at 1,000? We're fireworks and cherry days, I guess, would be where we have over 1,000 people. Is there any other occasions?
We do typically get one for the Chalk Art Festival, or the people involved get one for it.
Okay, it doesn't sound like we have many in the city.
And Tiffany does have a comment. She can probably provide a little bit better background.
Okay, let's hear from Tiffany.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I think we want it to read right there, mass gathering permit. That's the permit that's required by the county. The special event permit is just the permit that North Ogden City asks of events in the city. So the mass gathering permit is the one that's required for 1,000 people for 2 hours or more in an area that is not built for that use. So if we were to have 1,000 people at the aquatic center for 2 hours, we would not need a mass gathering permit because it is built for the use that it's being used for.
So do we need to change that then to a mass gathering permit? And then do we still have to have one for a special event permit within the city?
We require all events to fill out a special event permit.
Okay, so I guess we need a definition of that, John. And then this would be a mass gathering permit for the 1,000.
So, so the question I would have then is, we probably don't need to define a mass gathering permit. If they're going to be required to have a special event permit, then we should probably define the special event permit as the thing we're trying to regulate, unless you only want to have provisions that relate to events of 1,000 people or more. And I think the general feeling of the code is to treat all events the same, regardless of how big they are.
So I guess we better put that in as a special event permit as required by the city.
So Tiffany, how would you define that again? You would say it's a permit required for any group event.
That one's kind of tricky because we'll have groups that rent a pavilion and they host a family party and we don't ask that of them. But then if we have a group who wants to have an event, a larger event in the park or run a race on city roads, then we do ask them to fill out that special event permit.
Why don't we just put in there a special event permit, a permit as required by the city, and that gives us the leeway.
Okay. And I'll put, should I put as required by the police and parks and recreation departments?
Well, who requires it?
The parks does.
Well, But to her point, wonder if it's on a street or something like that. I mean, shouldn't we just say a permit is required by the city?
Okay.
Because I'm not sure all of them would be related to parks and recreation.
What about this? A permit required by the city for public gatherings?
Works for me if it works for the other council members. Does that work, Tiffany?
So John, that's not going to permit required by the city for public gatherings. Does that automatically include if you're having a family gathering at one of the Boweries?
I would say that the term public means that it's generally, there's a general invitation to the public to attend, and I wouldn't include a family gathering in that. Although it could, I mean, people could have a family reunion where they invite people to attend it if they want to.
But we haven't been requiring that, right? So based upon Tiffany's comments, that's not a permit required by the city.
Right.
I think we're covered there. What else, John?
So those were the biggest changes we did. Again, we clarified this section dealing with sound being broadcast on the property where an event's being held. So it doesn't have anything to do with a distance from that property or from the event. So those were the three kind of biggest things that I think we had talked about last time.
Are there any other comments from council? If not, we would be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2020-20, which would regulate sound in North Ogden City. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll move that we approve ordinance 2020-20, regulating sound within North Ogden City.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Let's see, who's on the second there?
Either one of us is fine.
We'll go with you, Councilmember Ekstrom. On that one, is there any further discussion? I think we all recognize that this isn't a perfect ordinance, but it gives us some guardrails and guidelines to help us with that issue in our city. So if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move to a roll call vote. I can't see, is Councilwoman Stoker with us yet, John?
No, I just double checked and she hasn't shown up yet.
All right, well, let's start with Councilwoman Ekstrom.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Severing.
Yes.
Motion, ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 8, which is a discussion on vesting the general plan and limiting a future. Oops, excuse me. We'll move on to 7, excuse me, which is the discussion or action to consider an ordinance regulating the amphitheater at Barker Park. Our presenter will be John Call, our city manager and attorney.
So council, this is the ordinance in front of you is the one that kind of takes the sound ordinance regulations out of the amphitheater rules and regulations, and then makes the tweaks so that the amphitheater rules and regulations match the rental permit as far as making sure that we're getting permission from the fire department, the police, and the parks as we rent that facility. I'm going to share this other document, which is the staff report, that shows all the changes that were in red to eliminate sound and tweak different things. There were some of these questions that were over in the side that we needed some direction from the council on. And I think philosophically, it probably comes down to if the council would like to treat the amphitheater different, or if it would be the same as all other parks. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. It's just a straight policy question for the council. We do have lots of events in other parks. For example, this first comment about 3 events or productions a week that use loudspeakers. A lot of our other parks allow the use of loudspeakers for broadcasting games and things like that. But we don't have a limitation there. I do know that the 3 events was discussed as part of the original "let's see how the amphitheater goes" type of discussion. And then there's these others that talk about when it would be open and when it would be closed. And then I think the last thing dealt with talking about parking during events out on the street. I don't think there's a question from the staff side as far as the number of tickets per parking space in the parking lot. It's just a question of do we want to continue to enforce with signs and tickets the parking out on the street? And those were the 4 things that came up in the initial discussion maybe a month or 2 ago. And so it just needs some guidance from the council on those 4 questions.
John, can you zoom in on that, please?
Yes, yeah. So the first one is the limit to 3 events or productions that use loudspeakers in a week, Sunday to Saturday.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Barker.
I'm okay leaving it at 3 right now. And that my reasoning is, as long as it's the 3 amplified events, people can rent it for family reunions or weddings, whatever. But if you're doing 3 amplified production events, I think we should limit it to 3. Right now, how many? I don't see us getting our amphitheater broken down to do more events than 3 a week right now. So what's the harm in leaving it that way? And then if it starts in the future, it starts coming up where it's an issue, let's readdress it.
Thanks, Councilman Barker, for your comments. Councilman Swanson, did you have some additional comments?
I did. On the other side of that, what if we have 4 weddings in a week and they are broadcasting music to dance to? That would, in my understanding, fall under this, because it is an event using any loudspeaker. And I think we would cut ourselves short of potential rentals of that facility, which is what we're trying to get done if we had that. So I think we ought to treat all the parks the same and just make it easy that way.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's the same thought process, but I think we ought to take the restrictions off and then put them back on if there is a problem. So I would say put it more open, and then if we have problems, then we say, okay, we're going to have to pull it back. I mean, generally my approach is to have fewer restrictions rather than more, and then add them later if we run into issues. So that's, to me, it's like, I would rather have this park treated like all of the other parks until it tells us that we just can't, that it's untenable. And right now, I think as we're ramping it up and seeing what kind of events come and what kind of a disruption it causes, I think right now it's like, let's try it and see how it goes. So I would just take that restriction off to begin with. That's how I would approach it.
I think the other guardrail is frankly, the final rental agreements on that facility are probably subject to approval by the council. So once again, if we start seeing too many activities or it's disruptive, we don't have to approve the rental agreements. And also the council ultimately, on recommendation of the Arts Guild, will be approving city-sponsored events or county-sponsored events. So we ultimately have guardrails in place for the usage of that. So.
And Mayor, the way it's set up right now, we don't currently have the every rental won't come to the city or to the council for an approval unless that's something the council would like us to do. It would likely fill your agenda up in March, April, May.
Yeah, I don't think we're interested in seeing every rental, but we actually have, if we see it getting out of hand, we actually have the right to approve rentals.
Right, yeah.
But I'm not proposing that we want to see every rental, but it would be nice to have a summary of rentals and revenues on a quarterly basis from Councilwoman Ekstrom as she gives her report about what's going on in Parks and Recreation. And once again, if we see it being, something that's substantially different than what we're doing our other parks, and we actually have the ultimate say in that. Does that make sense? John?
Yes. I agree. Sorry, I misunderstood your comment, and you are 100%.
I don't think we're seeking more work to prove. I think we've got a Parks and Recreation director that can do that. But if we see ultimately, which I think Councilman Swanson's point is well taken, we've got a large investment sitting there. We surely want to utilize it as much as possible. But if we see it getting out of hand, we surely can make amendments, as Councilwoman Ekstrom said. Any other comments from council on that subject? Okay, it sounds like the elimination of 3 events per week will be taken out.
Okay. So the next question deals with the time of opening and closing. They're tied together, the next two. Currently, all the parks open at 8 a.m. and then they all do close at 10 p.m. So those are the times, with the exception that on July 4th, we typically have extended the hours beyond 10 p.m.
That's basically for fireworks, right, John?
Yes, because the fireworks can't be, it's not dark enough at 10.
I have some thoughts on this.
Okay, Councilwoman Ekstrom.
Well, to me, I think, again, that this park should be treated like all of the other parks, and the opening time should be the same. And then I would really like to give some discretion to the Arts Guild as far as the ending time, the closing time. Since they're going to be booking the events, they can use their expertise and discretion on if things need to go a little bit later. There are certain events that might need to go a little bit past 10 p.m., in which case I would like to give them some leeway in approving those. For instance, I know one of the plays that was put forth to possibly be performed in the amphitheater was The Sound of Music, which is going to go later. It's a longer thing. And then because it's so hot, we don't want to start it right then. So it's going to go a little bit after. So I would like to be able to have the option to have some of these events that might go a little bit later into the evening, just so that we have a little bit more, have more variety and that we can choose from of events that can go there.
And I would object to that from the following reason: as our sound ordinance has a 10 p.m. deal on it. So we're actually making exceptions, I believe, beyond our sound ordinance. And if we're going to do that for this location, then we basically have to give that leeway to someone, and probably wouldn't be the Arts Guild, of what the rest of the city would do after 10 p.m.
Mayor,
Yes.
could we strike a balance between those two by having the, productions, concerts, festivals, et cetera, end by 10 o'clock unless specifically authorized by the Arts Guild or Parks and Recreation, where there is that opportunity for, if there's a special event like the Sound of Music or something at any of the parks that might go a little bit later, that can be applied for and an extended deadline or shutdown time given?
Well, once again, my only concern is, Councilman, is that our sound ordinance for the rest of the city says 10 p.m. And the Arts Guild or Parks and Rec is just limited to that specific portion of our city. It seems like we then would have to go back and adjust our sound ordinance. Unless I'm misunderstanding, isn't it past 10 p.m., John?
Yeah, nighttime starts at 10 p.m. with the sound ordinance.
So my only concern is we're making a special exception for parks versus other people in the community that may have something else going past 10 p.m.
Mayor,
Barker?
and we just said with the limiting activities that we wanted to do the same thing as in every other park. Well, every other park says 10 p.m. So if we're following the rule that we want to do the same in every park, we have to do the same in every park for everything, is the way I understand it. So if we're I have no problem changing the start time till earlier, but I think we need to leave it at 10 p.m. because that's the same as every other park.
Mayor,
Oh, welcome, Councilwoman
thank you.
Coker. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. I'm in agreement with Ryan and you. I think we need to keep it at 10 p.m. and avoid some unforeseen consequences and problems by changing the time. In my opinion, it should stay at 10.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councilman Severing, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I've just been listening kind of carefully to everybody's comments, and I'm a big fan of if we make it consistent, we just have to stick with it being consistent. So I think I would agree with Cheryl. I think we need to stick with the 10 p.m.
Okay, we've got feedback on that one based upon, council. It looks like 10 p.m. would be the preferred, but whoever makes the motion can surely put in there whatever they would like. Okay, John, what else do we have?
So then for the time of the early use, the park's actually open at 6 a.m., but the sound ordinance starts at 7 a.m. And so unless the council objects, I think I'd recommend that it say 7 a.m. would be the starting time. That we do occasionally have events in the parks prior to 7 a.m. for the races and stuff. For some reason, runners don't like to run in the afternoon sun. They prefer the morning cool. And then sometimes we have some runs so that I think that would help, or that would be my recommendation.
What time do football games and baseball games start? I'm just wondering if we should have something for amplified events in all of our parks. Because that's what we're trying to do, is comply with the sound ordinance. And you're saying that's 7 a.m.?
I think Tiffany's on, but I think it's 8 a.m. is when the first football and soccer games will start, is 8 a.m. And so I don't know of a reason other than the half marathon that we like to do sometimes starts before that, but that's tied into Cherry Days.
That's not really a broadcast sound event, is it?
Sometimes they'll use it.
sorry, John, we do broadcast for that. We usually have a national anthem and the race is started with loudspeakers.
I guess what I'm seeing is we have a short national anthem and a starting thing. But basically, if we start this thing at 7 a.m., somebody could be broadcasting sound continuously from 7 in the morning till 10 at night. That doesn't seem to be respectful of any parks neighborhood. Do we have any events other than what would take place at the amphitheater where people would be broadcasting continually?
I'm not aware of any that have happened.
I don't know how we would do that, but the other option is 7 a.m. So I'd look for feedback from the council on that. Why don't we start with you, Councilman Severing, since your picture's on my screen. You're muted, Blake.
Sorry about that. I think 7 a.m. is too early. But I can see where John and Tiffany are coming from. Do we have to make that kind of, I would prefer sticking with that 10 o'clock a.m. and then, ask individuals at those kinds of activities just to keep it down. I don't know. That's just my initial thought.
Of course, that falls a little bit out of our strategy to have common rules amongst all the parks, right?
Right.
Because if we leave at 10 o'clock here, we're saying, wow, that's 10 o'clock at all parks for broadcast sound. But that I see your point there. Councilwoman Stoker?
As a runner, I think 7 o'clock is that's the time you want to start, not later, and certainly not at 10 o'clock. And mostly in all the years that we've done Cherry Days and had any sound, it's just been connected to Cherry Days. There's nothing earlier than that. So I'm okay with the 7 a.m. start.
Okay, Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yeah, I'm okay with 7 a.m. I think if we have certain events at the amphitheater, generally they're going to be doing camps and things like that. They might need to broadcast a little bit, even just a microphone loudspeaker so that the kids could hear. I don't think it's going to be like really blasting out so that it can be heard by an audience, but even just that's considered an amplified event. So I don't know. We have to kind of allow for some discretion, I think, to try and please be courteous. If we could just somehow put that in the ordinance, I don't know how else to, but that
Yeah.
I think keeping it consistent with 7 a.m. to all the parks is fine.
Okay, Councilman Barker?
I'm okay with making it 7, so then it's consistent with everything else that we've done.
Councilman, let's see, who have we got? Councilman Swanson, any comments from you?
Yeah, I agree that it should be left at 7. And if we're going to modify that to 10 a.m., then we have to seriously look back up at C. And I mean, if we're going to modify it on one, we can modify it on the other. But 7 a.m., I could be out in my backyard with a jackhammer tearing up concrete and be far more disruptive to my neighborhood than a loudspeaker playing music at the beginning of a race or the very loud whistles that the referees at the soccer games have.
Okay. All right, sounds like 7 a.m. is the recommendation there. Okay, what else do we have, John?
Okay, so I think the last one is talking about parking, and where what you want to do with the streets around the area. Right now, it's the ticket sales are limited to 4 per parking space in the parking lot, And then there's no event parking allowed on the south of Deer Meadows Drive or the east of Barker Parkway.
So who requested? I thought that was a particularly during fireworks or others, that there was a potential safety issue of emergency vehicles getting in and out of there.
So it does still specifically say that they are, that for parking purposes, they are required to not park on the street at all. So no one can park on the street at all on cherry days.
Well, why would it, I mean, if the road is packed, if it's a safety issue, does it matter if it's cherry days or some other day?
Hey, Mayor,
Councilman Barker?
as someone that's been up there on cherry days, it does matter because we are one of the few cities that has fireworks on cherry days. So we're bringing not just North Ogden residents, we're covering Ogden City, Pleasant View, and we just have every other city showing. So it's everybody. We have a higher influx of people on that one night compared to just a normal production in the amphitheater or in a park.
But let's say if we get, you know, the amphitheater really going and we have thousands of people coming. I think at one point in time, someone talked about tens of thousands of people coming. Is it a safety issue? I guess that's my question. If it's a safety issue at one given time, it'd be a safety issue at any time.
And what John said is for cherry days, there's no parking on any of that road. Not just the south side, but you can't park on the south side, the north side, the east side, or the west side. There's no parking on the road. That's the only difference between cherry days and this ordinance, is we just said there's no parking.
But right now, there's no, if I understand this, no event parking is allowed along the southern curb of Deer Meadows Drive or on the eastern curb of Barker Parkway. Homeowners in Deer Meadows subdivision and their guests may park along the restricted curbs, provided a proper permit is displayed in the windows of the vehicle, except on the 4th of July from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And so are we saying that no one can park on that? I didn't see the rest of the.
So Mayor, I think that the genesis of that restriction was typically the fire brush truck or one of the trucks was parked in the cul-de-sac on the southeasternmost corner, and they couldn't get out with vehicles parked on both sides if they were called out to a fire. And so the council decided to just eliminate parking entirely so that the fire trucks and people walking could get in and out without fear of getting run over.
Mayor.
So what's the recommendation here from the council?
Mayor.
Because I'll tell you, I think down on the same issue on Oaklawn Park on Saturdays, some Saturdays, my son used to live down there on the house second to going in there. And it would be difficult, in my opinion, for a fire truck or something to get through there, the way some of those people parked on the street there.
So Mayor, up at Oakland, they do have red painted curbs as well, going in the residential areas.
Really?
We might need to repaint them, but they are supposed to be red painted curbs, so you can't park in front of the houses.
So we already have that at another park then, is what you're telling me, Councilman Barker. So
Yeah.
leaving this in would not be an exception.
No.
And Mayor, Tiffany has done some research on the parking and could provide some more information about it if she would like to.
Yes, I would. I just want to provide a little bit of clarification. So in our meetings that we've had for Cherry Days, we invite the fire department to be there with us. And they have requested that we close off just one side of that Deer Meadows Drive. And it's been the south side in the past because that side, it was easier to close. We haven't actually closed both sides of the street, but the reason for that was because of the likelihood of needing to get a fire truck to the location where we were shooting off the fireworks, which is just east of the homes right there on Barker Parkway. We haven't blocked off parking for fire or emergency vehicles on a regular basis for any other kind of event. We've just relied on the width of the street and the parking requirements through Public Works. However, for the future, for Cherry Days, actually this year was the plan until we canceled fireworks. We're actually relocating where we display those fireworks from. As you know, that east field that's over there will soon be homes, and there won't be a location to shoot those fireworks from. So we are relocating that to the north side of Barker Park, and we've been working with our fireworks vendor to make that a possibility. So there will not be a need in the future to block off that traffic as we've done for fire and emergency vehicles, because they'll be located in a different place. We may have to change where we're blocking traffic at as fire sees fit for the new location, but it won't be needed for the old location where we have been shooting fireworks in the past.
Okay. Just so it's clear in my mind, though, we do block off parking on streets near other parks, right?
Like Councilman Barker said, we have redlined some of the parking where police and fire have said at our other parks that it's needed for their access, but not just because we don't want people to park there, other than the dog park does have similar restrictions.
So does anyone see a need to remove this or leave it the same, or what? Councilman Barker, you're kind of the safety guru. What are your feelings on this?
I don't see a reason to change this. When I think we could take out Cherry Days, because when we have a major event like that, we're kind of putting in, we work with the police department, the parks, fire department, everyone's working on parking and how to keep stuff open. We route traffic differently. I mean, a lot of stuff gets changed. So this is mainly this agreement's for all of amphitheater events, not just including Cherry Days. So for any normal event, I have no problem just leaving it the way it is. I haven't seen an issue where we've had more people than what could be parked on the sides of the road on the north and the west and along Fruitland Drive than what's up there. So I don't see a reason to change it.
Okay, Councilwoman Stoker?
I'm in agreement. I don't see a need to change it, especially on our fire marshal's recommendation.
Councilman Swanson?
I don't see a need to change it. It not only addresses the potential safety issue, but it also allows the neighbors there to have an opportunity to have family gatherings and such like that, and their families be able to park at the home that they're visiting for, be it Cherry Days or an amphitheater event or anything else like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Ekstrom, did you have anything to add to what's been said so far?
Well, I'm just trying to be clear on what we're changing versus we're not changing. So
we're not changing anything here.
Not changing it. So it means we're still just not going to, we're going to keep those unfriendly signs up and say you can't park in front of my house.
Correct.
So that's.
Or we could paint the curb red.
And just not let anybody park there.
But then their family couldn't park there.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I say take it out until it needs to be put back in. Right now, we don't have any events at the amphitheater that really have been a problem with parking. Everybody's had enough room to park, but you know, that doesn't mean that's not going to change, right? It might get to the point where we're having lots and lots of events and and they're big, and then I have somebody parked in front of my house, you know, 7 days a week. But right now, that's just not the case. So for me, I would just keep it like we do in other parks, and then as we start to ramp up, as it starts to be a problem, then we can readdress this. But
just as a reminder, we do have limited parking in other parks.
Sure, but we don't have signs in front of people's houses saying you can't park here if there's an event. other than with Oaklawn where we've got the red curbs, but
Okay.
I don't want to be treated differently because I live across the street from the amphitheater than somebody who lives across the street from North Ogden Park. So me, and again, it's not a problem. It hasn't been a problem. Again, because we've generally limited, with the exception of cherry days, but we're not going to do, craft the ordinance just for cherry days. It's like, okay, that's the exception to all of the things. We have exceptions for that, for the sound ordinance and everything else. But for just your regular, day in, day out events that we have at the amphitheater, the parking really hasn't been an issue. They haven't been that big. So again, I would take it out until it's a problem, because it's not a problem yet.
But our goal is to get bigger events there so it can be properly utilized, right?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Right now it's
but
way under.
Hopefully by that point we have other parking put in there as well, right? Because we have other parking that's
Well, however, we don't have the money to do that parking because of other commitments. It'll be quite a while probably before we get other parking, but thank you for your comments very much. Councilman Severing, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just say that if we don't have any particular issues occurring right now and things are going well, I would leave the paragraph as is.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like the majority, and once again, the motion can tell the results, but at this point in time, it seems like the council would like to leave that in. All right, what else do we have, John?
So that was it. As far as changes that we need a little more guidance on, and ones the council hadn't talked about. So I have incorporated the main change into this version of the ordinance that eliminates paragraph A related to the number of events, amends the time to 7 a.m. and then leaves everything else the same as was shown in your packet, with the exception of reading, as I was just reading this, I added an "of" into the sentence that says any individual violation of this provision, just because it didn't read right before. So it was a little grammar check while we were talking. So those are the changes between what was shown on the staff report and the original version of this, and what you've just talked about.
Okay, thank you very much. So council, is there any further discussions? I appreciate your input, good comments. Any further discussion before we seek a motion to approve the ordinance or table?
Mayor, I have one additional comment.
Councilman Swanson, please.
That is that if our goal is to get the amphitheater as used as possible because of the investment that we have there, limiting it to 10 o'clock at night is going to eliminate a lot of productions during the summertime. And so we're kind of in a catch-22 there. I think we ought to allow the Arts Guild the leeway to go to 11 o'clock for a specific event if it's deemed that that's necessary, not as a general rule, but as it's necessary, so that we can make that facility as useful as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Barker.
This is more just a grammar on item E3, Northview Fire. Northview is 2 words. Perfect.
Councilwoman Ekstrom, I saw, I can't see anybody on my screen here, so I don't know who's raising their hand or wanting to speak, but I think.
That was me. I was just going to be in agreement with Councilman Swanson. I would, and that's what I was actually trying to express earlier. I really would like to have the option to go a little bit later on certain things at the discretion of the Arts Guild. Not every night, not every time. Again, it's going to be that, there's some judgment involved, but where it gets dark so much later in the summertime, and it really is a facility that's only going to be used during the summer months. I would like to at least have the option to be able to go a little bit later for some of the productions, just so that, again, there are more options that can make it be able to be utilized. So that's my 2
I would
cents.
say if the council wants to consider that, that exceptions are made by the council, because the council is the one who's going to be taking the heat.
Sure.
Responsibility, authority and responsibility ought to probably come together. So if there's an exception to that because it relates to the sound ordinance, I would prefer to have that at the approval of the council. So the one will be taking the heat.
Okay, so John, could we put some language in there about the sound ordinance? You know, that if an event coming to the amphitheater does need to go later, that it's for the council and have the discretion to approve or disapprove it.
If we were going to do that, I would recommend we put it in the sound ordinance that allows for the council to authorize events later than the sound ordinance, because then it would be covered across the city. You know, for example, you know, on Cherry Days, we have some events that, you know, might start at 6:30 or 6, that the council could authorize, that might be a little bit noisier than the sound ordinance, or maybe a lot noisier in event of a cannon fire.
You know, I think back to Councilwoman Ekstrom's comments. At this point in time, we've approved the sound ordinance. We're not aware of anything this year that would involve going past 10 o'clock. Maybe we change that as necessary, because we have an expired sound ordinance right now, I believe, don't we, John? Unless we pass the one we just passed.
Yeah.
So maybe we can make the amendment as necessary and leave it at 10 p.m. now. Does that make any sense?
Sorry. I think that would be helpful for staff to, as we plan for next year, to look at bringing that in as a provision to change. You know, particularly with the Arts Guild and, you know, groups like Chalk It Up and others, to just make sure that we're meeting the goals of the city and those groups and all that. So,
Council,
Okay,
would that be acceptable?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So right now we don't have anything that would go past 10 p.m. So let's just leave it as it is. And then when something comes up, they say, hey, we want to do this, and it's, you know, it's going to go later, then we bring it back and we can look at it then. That seems like a reasonable thing to do.
You know, I think what would be good. Oh, sorry, Councilwoman.
No, that's okay. Right now, as I was just going to say, we don't need to borrow trouble. We don't have anything right now that wants to go past 11 p.m. So we can leave it as it stands, and maybe we never will. But I think the option to do it, maybe, and to revisit it, would be at the time something wants to go later than 10.
And I think what would be nice is, as with the Art Guild gets formulated and starts functioning properly, that they would bring to us a plan for the year. Because the play, for instance, you referenced, I'm assuming would be a city-sponsored event. And that we could, if it's planned to go longer than 11, I just don't want it to be next week we're going to have this event that's going to go past 11. I'd like to see the plan for the use of the amphitheater as much as we know, particularly for city events. And if it's going to go past 10, we know that as part of the plan. And understand if somebody goes to 10:05, we're not going to do backflips or anything. So, council, does that sound okay?
I agree with that, Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion before we seek a motion to either approve or table this ordinance? If not, I would be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2020-21, which is a ordinance regulating the amphitheater at Barker Park. Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance as outlined before us?
Mayor, I move that we approve the ordinance 2020-21 concerning the amphitheater at Barker Park as outlined.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Ekstrom. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilman Swanson. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severing,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ekstrom.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is a discussion on vesting the general plan and limiting future zone changes. Our presenter will be Phil Swanson, one of our council members. Phil?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This will be, I think, a relatively short intro and then hopefully a relatively short discussion. Our Master Plan Steering Committee is doing an excellent job in helping us identify the types of zoning that we want in various parts of the city. And something that we've, Cheryl, you'll recognize this, we've talked about vesting the zoning for different vacant parcels throughout the city. We've talked about that for years and we've just never acted on it. Is there anyone that doesn't understand what vesting that zoning means? Okay, for those that may be listening and that don't, essentially what it means is that on the master plan, an area would be zoned, say, R110 on that plan, and then any developer who's coming to look to buy that land in the future would automatically know that that land is designated as R110. It would pretty much preclude them from coming in and asking for R4 or anything like that. And I think it does a better job of calming some of the angst that we have in the city, because every parcel comes in and it becomes a rezone hearing, and we go through the battle of what do we want there. Well, it's my land, I want this, I want that. I think we are better stewards of the city and better stewards of our land, and by our I mean the city, not individual landowners of our area, if we take this step and vest what the Planning Steering Committee is doing to mark out these areas. In that light, I would propose that we, short of passing a moratorium, there's many reasons that moratoriums just can be troublesome, but I think we just kind of let the public know that until the Planning Steering Committee has that vesting, the suggested vesting plan ready for us, that we don't consider any major rezones of large parcels of land or anything until that time, that we can look at that vesting map, at that parcel map. Boy, I'm struggling for the words here, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Okay, anything further? Councilman Swanson, you want to add?
No, I think it's, I think we can end a lot of controversy, a lot of angst, a lot of division, and give a clear path forward for the city by taking a pause, getting this vesting taken care of, and then moving forward from there.
Okay, I'd like to hear maybe a comment from Councilman Barker, since he kind of has that assignment to be a liaison with the Planning Commission and the general steering. I like the idea. I think it has some real merit. If we can, I think this would obviously cause more public involvement in the general plan steering committee approach too, which is what we want, because that's going to give us some guardrails and guidelines about the future of our city. So I think this is an idea worth considering, but I would like to hear from Councilman Barker.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, when we get down to agenda item 11A, just plug Phil in right there. That's what I was gonna say. He just covered it for me. No, dealing with the general plan steering committee, was our discussion last month, was whether we want to talk about a moratorium, and the consensus kind of came out that we'd rather say, instead of a moratorium, just no new rezones, because what's already zoned is approved. So let's allow what's ever approved now but until the vesting gets done, no new rezones. And I think Councilman Swanson did a good job presenting that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman
Yep.
Barker. Are there any other council members who would like to comment on that? Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yeah, I think this, operation, let's take a breath. We've done a lot of rezoning, a lot of upheaval, a lot of this, that, and the other. Why not just pause for a moment? Let's give the general plan and steering committee a chance to just kind of come together with something that we can get our heads wrapped around. And then when someone comes with a rezone that they request, we can show them. It's like, no, we've got this plan, we've got this all set out. And it just gives them a chance. So we're not just coming, we don't have this guy coming and this guy coming and all wanting to do something a little bit different, that we have a cohesive agenda and plan going forward to present to people. And how long are we going to do it? 6 months? Is that kind of what we're looking at? Was that it, Phil?
I hadn't thought of a specific time. Councilman Barker, do you know how long it will take the general plan steering committee to come up with that vesting map?
They wanted to get it done quicker than 6 months. They're talking meeting weekly or bi-weekly with a group to get it moving quickly. So I don't think it'd be longer than 6 months.
I think they're coordinating with the Planning Commission and also Economic Development Committee. I think there's some correlation taking place or should take place there. So
I'm happy to say till December 31st. If Ryan, if you think they can, excuse me, Councilman Barker, if they'll have it done by the end of the year, I don't think we stretch it any further than we need to, or 6 months is fine. And we can end it sooner if that vesting plan happens. So
I like the December 31st. I think that gives the committee something to shoot for. And it's important because we do have some development that's looking for potential rezones right now, even though an official application hasn't been there. And I don't want to delay too much. So I would say let's shoot for December 31st. John, do we need any other council members have a comment on this? Do we need to take any formal action, John, or do we just let this be known that we're not going to be doing any rezones till this is approved?
We can just pass the word along that anyone who would like to ask for a rezone, that the council's kind of let people know that they are, they're not legally obligated to change a reason or to rezone stuff. And so you can ask, but the answer is probably likely no.
So basically what we're saying is for something to be put on the agenda, that has to come through a council member or the mayor. And we're agreeing this evening that no one's going to put that on the agenda.
Well, if someone files an application for a rezone, the city has to act on it. But we can let people know that it's not, the message from the council is they're not gonna be likely to approve anything.
All right.
The only exception I would have to that is an individual lot where it's an infill kind of lot that somebody has, and maybe as we had down there on 2850 and 800 East, where it was R18 or AG, and we moved it to RE20 for that 3.5 acre lot. If we have an individual homeowner who is saying RE20 and they want to change it to R18 for an individual lot, I think we ought to go ahead and consider that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, once again, I think we can look at those on an individual basis. Since they have to come to the council, according to John, we can make that decision at that time, but that's probably not a problem in regards to the general plan. So I think that makes sense.
I'm excited to see the vesting plan. It's been talked about for years, and I think it's time we finally get that thing done and give some better guidance to our city.
Yeah, I think particularly now the time is right with everything that's going on. So, all right, we'll move on. Thank you, very much, Councilman Swanson. Did you have a comment, Councilman Severing?
I was just going to say, I think this is I think it's a necessity. We have done a lot in the last year, but even more important than that, I think this is a way of saying to the General Steering Plan Committee that we appreciate the work that you've done and we want to support it. So good work, and let's keep working toward December 31st.
Thank you very much, Councilman Severing, for your comments. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 9. And this is a discussion or action to consider the appointment of a hearing officer, an agreement for the hearing office services. And this will be presented by John Call, City Manager and Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. So council, this agreement looks different than any other agreement that the city typically sees. And the reason why is because you're technically appointing this person to be the hearing officer, and they are actually covered under city insurance, and not medical insurance, but malpractice, or kind of think of it as just legal insurance for acting the way that the office they're holding is required to act. And so this agreement is very short, and is basically just intended to appoint an individual by the name of Meg Ryan, or Megan B. Ryan, no relation to Hollywood individuals. She has provided administrative hearing officer services for the city for about 4 years now, and also does it for several jurisdictions across the state. With this latest iteration, her cost per hour has gone up a little bit, but we have been very happy with the work she's done, in particular because not once has she ever asked Rob or anybody, what way do you want me to decide this? She treats it like a law judge does, and basically she gets to make up her own mind, and the planning staff or the residents can present information, and she rules on it like Utah code says she does. And I don't think she picks favorites or anything. And in some ways that's hard on a city, but in general, I think that's the best way for a city to operate, is that we don't get any benefit of the doubt in these situations. So we would recommend her being selected and appointed as the hearing officer.
Okay, council members, the agreement was in your packet. Do you have any questions on the agreement? Our city attorney has said he's properly vetted out Meg and feels comfortable. If there's no further discussion, we would look for a motion to approve the appointment of a hearing officer, which would be covered under agreement 21-2020 to cover hearing officer services. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I would move that we accept agreement 21-2020 in appointing Meg Ryan as the hearing officer for North Ogden City.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Severing. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilwoman Stoker. Any further discussion? Not? Any discussion? Excuse me? Okay, if not, we'll move to a voice vote. Councilwoman Stoker?
Yes.
Councilman Barker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Severing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item 10 on our agenda, which is a discussion that will be led by Annette Spenlove, our city recorder. And this discussion or action is to consider an agreement for a minute specialist. Annette?
Mayor, yes, Mayor and Council, a minute specialist was brought before you. In fact, 2 of them, one to do something different than the other one, do separate meetings back in July. But we've had one of those minute transcriptionists who terminated services because of some concerns she had. So we were looking for another transcriptionist, and we've selected Camilla Price, transcription consultant, and she will be doing our general plan, our general plan steering committee meeting minutes, and our economic development committee meeting minutes, and our public safety building committee meeting minutes. She's been preparing minutes for over 15 years, and she has done quite a few cities, and we've seen some of her work, and she does a really good job. This agreement is for 1-year term and may be renewed for up to 4 additional annual 1-year terms. And we are recommending that council consider her.
Okay, thank you very much, Annette. Council, do you have any questions of Annette? There being no questions, we would look for a motion to approve agreement A 22-2020 for a minute specialist to provide services for the mentioned meetings. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll move that we approve agreement 22-20A 22-2020 as
Thank you.
discussed.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Ekstrom, thank you very much. Any further discussion? There being none, we'll move to a voice vote. Councilwoman Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilwoman Severing,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our council reports. I've asked the council members who have taken on assignments so graciously to report back to the council about their assignment, what's going on in the respective areas that they've been asked to help with. I'd like to change the order a little bit and start with maybe Council Member Swanson, since he gave some of Council Member Barker's presentation a little bit. But we'll go with you, Councilman Swanson. Can you give us an update on what's going on with the finances of our city and your assignments, please?
I can. The biggest, I would say the biggest object that we're tracking right now is, of course, sales taxes and where those come in. So far, year to date, as we discussed last week in the Truth and Taxation hearing, we are ahead of where we projected that we would be. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are ahead of where we were last year. We had projected a pretty sizable deficit in that, and we are doing better than that deficit that we had projected. So that's being watched closely so that we hopefully, if things continue to be good and maybe improve, that we can make changes as necessary. And on the flip side of that, if things continue to sour, that we can be ready to make necessary moves as the economy would dictate. As Mayor mentioned in our Truth and Taxation hearing last week, GDP for the month of June dropped 32%, which is huge. Now, whether that pans out to anything further down the road and trickles down and affects local economies has yet to be seen. So other than that, we're doing very well. The departments are doing exceptionally well with their expenditures right now, holding to a very tight budget that we have this year and making do with a lot of what they had last year and not receiving some of what they needed this year. So they're doing exceptionally well, and I'm grateful for council being the strong eyes that they are in helping us manage this budget, especially during this difficult time. Mayor, is there anything additional that you would like to know?
It might be worth just mentioning the further discussion we've had on the audit committee and the decision to maybe expand that. Do you want to talk just a
Sure.
little bit about that?
Several weeks ago, Councilman Severing offered the idea that we involve a couple of citizens on the audit committee. And I reached out to all of you this week, and I think everybody's in agreement that that would be a good idea. There are a couple of individuals, Blake, I don't know if I haven't received anything from you yet, narrowing down to a single individual who you'd like. But I have an individual that I'd like to recommend, and I have not spoken with that individual yet, so I won't mention any names right now. And then Blake, if you can get a name to me, we can speak with them as well. But I think the individuals that are being considered are very experienced in finance, in business, in taxation, all of those things. They have a wealth of knowledge that Blake correctly identified will only benefit our audit committee.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. And I have had further discussion with Councilman Severing, and we will have you a name. And I think because of that involvement and just being prudent, it would be nice to have that committee sit down on a quarterly basis and receive a finance report from you and Evan, so they have an idea what's going on and what's happening, and can be representative of the citizens.
My thought would be to have that committee meet the week before we're prepared to present the quarterly finance report to council.
Yes, thank you. And I would just like to add one additional thing here that I've had a discussion with you, Councilman Swanson, and that is regarding our Truth and Taxation hearing last week. I think we heard loud and clear the concern about our citizens who are on fixed income. I think all along in our discussion have been very cognizant and aware of that situation, particularly in today's economics. And I think we'll remember, most of us, that in our initial discussions, we had talked about giving a portion of that transportation utility fee that had been collected since 2015, try to figure a way to give that back to our citizens as an offset to this year's increase. I believe in our discussions, you're in agreement with that. Is that correct?
I am, yes.
So I would like to challenge, and I've talked with John about this, challenge John to come up with a way that is efficient and effective. We don't want it to cost more than it's benefiting our citizens. So using a cost benefit analysis, figure a way to be able to return that to those who would like a return. There may be some that don't like to contribute that towards the repairs of our roads. That would be up to them, but I would like to, unless the council objects, give that assignment to John and Evan to come up with a way to refund that by November 30th that would coincide with the payment of the taxes. Does the council have any concerns with that, John, or have you given that any more thought?
I have given it some thought, and I think the biggest thing as far as the efficiency and effectiveness will be the amount that's refunded. So I think November 30th can be done, Mayor.
Okay. And once again, as I mentioned, we had that discussion early on, giving consideration to those in our community who may be struggling. But as I just contemplated the discussions from last week, just brought it back to my mind, and I'd like to pursue that. Do any other council members have an objection to that? If not, if you'd accept that assignment, Mr. Call, we'd appreciate it. And once again, come back to us if we run into any hurdles or difficulties that would create a hurdle in doing that.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilman Barker? you have anything further you'd like to report regarding building and planning and your assignments?
I think we did a pretty good job discussing the building already, our building and planning. We did have our mosquito board meeting last night. There are 17 confirmed cases of the West Nile virus in the United States. There's 0 in Utah. So right now our mosquitoes are they're out there, but they don't have West Nile yet. They're still out spraying as often as needed, and they're hoping for cooler weather so that they'll all go away.
All right. Just one other thing too, if you're completed, Councilman Barker, are you done? Thank you. Councilman Swanson, could you just give a brief report on your assignment working with the county on the CARES Act and the number of businesses in North Ogden that have submitted applications and are being considered for that grant from the county?
I can. Unfortunately, I don't have the North Ogden number right in front of me, and I don't want to take a wild guess at it. But we have far more businesses that are eligible for CARES grant assistance than are applying, and that is pretty typical across the entire county. So as we enter into round 2, round 1 checks are going out within the next few days, the next week or so. And that first round was focused on businesses that had to close completely because of the pandemic. The next round will be businesses that didn't necessarily have to close, but still suffered losses because of the pandemic. Then those applications are on the way, and that review will be coming shortly. But I will report back to everyone with the exact number of North Ogden business numbers that businesses that have applied. Mayor, unless you have that number off the top of your head.
The last report I saw, Councilman Swanson, is that there were 47 whose applications had been completed and were being considered, and there were others in the queue. So I don't have the final number, but at least 47 businesses their applications had been completed.
Right.
Once again, just want to thank Councilman Swanson. He is one of the few representatives that are being utilized by the county to help approve applications, and it's not easy. I think the last number I saw, there were over 550 applications, and there were another 100 and something in the queue. So it's been a lot of work. So thank you for your involvement there also.
Happy to do it.
Next council meeting, we'll hear reports from our other 3 council members on their assignments, so that the council knows what's happening there, and also the public in those assignments. Thank you very much for your reports this evening. We'll now move to item 12, which are public comments. John, if you would monitor that and let us know if there are any comments.
Okay, I have turned on the chat and everything.
Thank you. Please let us know if anyone has comments.
And we do have a few new people. So for those who are new, that you should on the app have an option to raise your hand. And then if you raise your hand, we can call on you from that point. We have a written comment from Susan Clemens inquiring what happened to Councilman Barker.
Councilman, do you want to respond to that? And don't be using the fact that you disagreed with the mayor on something.
Yeah, I was about 2 weeks ago. I was out helping a friend up on a roof, fell off, and I broke my right foot on the heel, my hip, pelvis, cracked ribs, broke my right hand, and broke my nose. So actually, my nose might actually look better here. So, and I've already had surgery on my hip and pelvis, and my foot's coming up on Thursday. So I'm already on the recovery side.
And we're grateful, although those injuries are severe, that it could have been a lot worse. So
right. Yep.
The tuck and roll methodology seemed to work a little bit. So we're grateful.
was gonna say, as we get older, we don't roll as easy anymore. I'm finding out.
Yes. John, I see we have two in chat. Is there another comment?
The next comment was just from Susan Clemens, saying she hopes that he heals quickly.
As do we. Any other comments from the public this evening?
Not at this time.
All right. We'll move on to item number 13 then, which are comments from the council. The mayor, the staff, let's start with council. Are there any comments from citizens that we need to address?
Oh, Mayor,
Yes.
um,
Councilwoman Stoker.
thank you. I received a phone call from a citizen that he wanted to know when North Ogden had moved or had a satellite office in Seattle, Washington. And I said, well, as far as I know, we don't. And he said that he has been sending his utility bill to North Ogden City, and it's like North Ogden City PO Box something, and it's going to Seattle. And I said, well, have you put the North Ogden City address here? And he said, no. He said, well, maybe you should try that and see. So I don't know if it's a scam or what's going on, but thanks for the reminder. I told him I would check into that and see if anybody had that problem or heard anything.
Okay, thank you. John, are you aware of anything of that nature?
We do have a lockbox with Wells Fargo. Anyways, we do accept some payments, and I actually just got a text from our treasurer, Jamie, who said that is the lockbox for Wells Fargo location. So it is where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
And it is a North Ogden official spot.
Perfect. Thank you. I will get back to him. And also, I agree with Councilman Barker. I don't bounce either.
Yeah, that's right. You two are gonna have to keep a special eye on you, along with Councilwoman Ekstrom and her knee. Getting a little bit severe here. Any other comments from council?
Yes, Mayor, just a couple of comments.
Yes, Councilman Severing.
So maybe just for clarity then, because I received that same phone call from the citizen wanting to have information about Seattle. So John, am I understanding that there shouldn't be anything sent to Seattle? It should be local. When you talk about a lockbox, what are you talking about?
So a lockbox is a place where they accept your payments, and then they process the checks and deposit it into your account. So if someone's mailing in a check, it's a way to basically get it to go through quicker. I mean, I know that sounds funny, but it's a benefit. It's a service that comes with Wells Fargo where we're banked, and the lockbox for us, or the lockbox center, is in Seattle, and so
Okay.
that's where they're sent, and it's appropriate for them to go there.
Okay. Because he called me and he was very confused, and quite honestly, I was confused. I didn't know how to answer. So I'm grateful that Councilwoman Stoker brought that up. I just had two things really quickly. I didn't think about this till after, but when we were speaking about special event permits, I'm assuming that the city also gets like an additional insured notice on that, right?
We do for the amphitheater rentals. That's one of the requirements of the amphitheater rental.
Okay, good. And then just curious, when Ryan Forsyth and his issue on 7-Eleven, is that going to be coming up anytime soon?
I've talked with Ryan initially about doing it as a work session at the beginning of September. And
Okay.
that would work for him.
Okay, excellent. And again, I apologize for missing today's Public Works barbecue. I'll be there tomorrow, but I was out of town. And John, just want to say thanks to you and Ed and everybody at the city. It's just awesome to be a part of this this service, public service. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Severing. And next week, would you be prepared to talk to the council and inform the citizens about the structure we're trying to put in place to make sure we have better follow-up with our citizens as they make requests?
On the 25th, Mayor?
Yes, on their next council meeting.
You want me to talk about like escalating and following up on? Yep, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, the new process and new way we're handling work orders and follow-up, just to make sure that we're responding. So many requests coming in for our citizens, sometimes it gets confusing. So we're going to try to formalize that a little bit more so we can keep track of things. So
you and I spoke about that here a couple of weeks ago. I'll be honest, I haven't contacted anybody since then. Has there been some work toward that end on the staff?
yeah, if you get with Dave and John, they can update you on what's going on there.
All right, happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council?
Yes,
Oh.
I did. I received the same message about the payment being sent. I assumed that we just had a payment collection center. I didn't realize it was Wells Fargo, but I just want to make sure someone is actually going to take the step to communicate with this resident. So Cheryl, are you going to call him back, or Blake, make sure that he gets the information?
I told him I would follow up on it. So I
Okay.
will get back with him.
Perfect, thank you.
And you know, the concept of a lockbox, or as you referred to it, Councilwoman Ekstrom, as a centralized collection point for payments. I remember when I was in the mortgage banking business, that's how when people sent their mortgage payments in, it didn't come to us directly. It went to a central location where they open it, process it, and give us credit to our account. So it's pretty common utilization of that service where there's mass payments coming in. So thanks for following up on that issue. Do you have anything else, Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Nope, that was it. That was brought to my attention this week.
Councilman Swanson, do you have anything further?
Just to thank you for the support last week during that presentation and all the hard work that the departments and council members and mayor and our city administrator have, and everyone in finance, Jamie, Evan, have put in trying to figure out this budget this year.
Yes, it takes a village, so to speak, doesn't it, to make things happen. And both Councilman Swanson and myself, along with, I think, Councilwoman Ekstrom, has also had the opportunity to be there, and Councilman Barker, even though he's injured, to support our departments recently. And it's good to see the commitment that our employees have to the city and their desire to serve. And so my appreciation goes out also. I just have one quick thing, and that'll be the Economic Development Committee. We have challenged them to help with business growth in our city, including organic growth with our existing businesses, and how we can encourage, in addition to businesses coming into the city, that'll be meaningful to our citizens, helping our existing businesses capture more business and reduce the leakage, which means how can we get more people to shop in North Ogden? We've looked at that previously. This isn't anything new, but I think you'll see a more active involvement with the Economic Development Committee. And I've asked them to make sure they're coordinating with planning and the general plan. So hopefully they'll be an arm to help us to make recommendations to us as the council to help business growth in our city. Staff, do you have any additional comments before we adjourn for this evening?
Just two reminders, Mayor. One, you mentioned already the barbecues. There are two more, well, three more. Tomorrow, the police will be getting two barbecues so that we can capture everyone. And then on Friday is the first installment of Benny's Boat Race, which is kind of intended to be a new feature at the pool. And I'll send you out some invite or some information on that because you haven't seen a flyer in your inbox yet. Is that correct?
I've seen one.
Oh, that's right. Because you are all on the employee list, so you've seen that. But anything you can do to participate. As far as the barbecues go, we've already received some real positive feedback from the staff that it's helped kind of boost morale a little bit. And I feel like part of their favorite thing is shooting water balloons at the dummy in the field. So that's been
Wow.
good.
I understand you got hit with the water balloon today.
2 of them, 3 actually, if you count the sneaky water balloon to the back.
Well, yeah, it
The one
still
that
counts.
I missed.
It still counts, John. Still counts. And it's been interesting. I've learned quite a few things about some of our council members in their earlier days. And I'm willing to keep that low key and below the radar. So it's been good. I think it's.
We've learned a lot about you too.
Hey, but I'm paying for that to keep quiet. But I think it has been good, particularly in the times today where everyone's been separated because of COVID and the situation. And the staff has done a good job of following social distancing at these events. And I think it's been really good for groups to get together and associate again with one another. So anything else from staff? If not, I'd be looking for the favorite motion of this evening, which would be a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Council Member Stoker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Council Member Ekstrom. Does anyone object to adjourning this meeting?
Yeah, no
If
objection.
not, meeting is adjourned, and thank you so much for your participation this evening and for all you do. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.